Module 5. Goodbye to the blame game. So far in the program, we've looked at how we're made up of many different selves. Primary selves, disowned selves, and the possibility of standing between the selves and making conscious choices. Nowhere is this more obvious or more evident than when we get into relationship with another person, because the question arises, which parts of me are involved with which parts of you? And this interaction of the different parts of the two people in a relationship is what we call the dance of selves in relationship. In fact, voice dialogue itself developed out of the relationship of Hal and Sidra Stone. When they first met and fell in love, they were determined that they did not want to repeat old patterns of negative or painful, uncomfortable behaviour from their past relationships. But much as they wanted that, what actually happened is that those very same patterns started to repeat. And they thought, hang on a minute, we're with different people here, we're in love, and yet these old patterns are still showing up. What's going on? And the answer to their inquiry was the whole voice dialogue and psychology of selves methodology and concept. So we're going to have a look in this module at how different parts of you will engage with different parts of another person, both in a feel-good way and in a feel-bad way. So to begin, let's do an exercise that you're very familiar with. It's the preparatory exercise for this module. What makes you an attractive prospective partner? Now, it's similar to what you did in module 1. In this case, focusing in on a relationship. I'll just share with you what I put down on mine. So I think that I'm a caring person, sensitive, and responsible. Now those I feel will be good qualities to bring to a relationship that will make me an interesting person to be in relationship with. I am also neat and tidy, I'm a good listener, and I'm financially sound. So what a package! Oh my God, you know, I think this would make me a really good partner, all of these characteristics. Now, I'm sure you've already tuned into the fact that what we're looking at here is the values of the primary selves, the operating system as we've called it, the primary selves who are running the show, who are fronting the world and keeping me safe in the world. And they manifest these qualities to people around me so that they'll like me, and in the best case that they will love me and fall in love with me. So, what kind of people would I not want to be in my life, that I don't think I would be attracted to, actually, that if I was in a relationship with them, God, these characteristics would just drive me crazy? Well, it's the opposite of those other characteristics, of course, the opposite of my primary selves. That is somebody who is uncaring, insensitive, irresponsible, messy, inattentive, a spendthrift who doesn't really have a good sense of money. Well, that's all very clear, isn't it? But there's a snag. What tends to happen in life is that we actually fall in love with people who hold as their primary selves some of this, which of course, as you will have realized, is our disowned material. Goodness me, how does that happen? Well, we have the expression in the language, don't we? Opposites attract. It's a bit like the yin and the yang. You know, if my primary selves are what's on the white side there, then the in the shadow selves are what my partner holds as their primary selves. So why don't I see that? Why do I say, my goodness me, we fit so well together, it's like pieces of a puzzle? With you I feel whole and complete. You know, the popular songs sing about this. Well, the reason that we don't see those characteristics as threatening or dangerous is because we are loved. We are looking at the world through what we describe as rose-tinted glasses. The other person loves me. I love the other person. They're taking care of me. I'm taking care of them. My primary selves don't need to worry so much, do they? Because actually, you know, they don't have to do the work. They don't have to protect me because I am loved. And that's fabulous. So who then am I drawn to, in fact? Well, I'm drawn to somebody who, when I'm in love with them, I look at and say, my God, you're so self-sufficient and unconcerned. You know, you're very independent. You can not have to worry about other people all the time and what they think. I love that about you. And of course, they look at me and fall in love with the opposite characteristic from this one, which is, but you're so caring, you're so sensitive to other people. Now notice that self-sufficient and unconcerned are the positive reframe of what I might otherwise, what my primary selves would judge as uncaring. Thick-skinned, I would tend to fall in love with people who don't respond so sensitively to criticism and judgment. They don't care so much what other people think, which my primary selves might think is insensitive. But actually, when I'm in love, I see this as a positive attribute. Carefree, similarly. That's the positive reframe of irresponsible. Creative and spontaneous. Gosh, I say, you're so creative and spontaneous. Yeah, I love that about you, right? And, you know, they would say, yes, but you know, I like the way you're very ordered and neat and tidy. That's incredible to me. You know, that's the positive reframe of messy. Lives in their imagination, inattentive, unconcerned about money. Negative would be spendthrift. So you see how when I'm in love, I look at that same energy or characteristic, and rather than judging it, as my primary selves would do, I see it as a positive, as a wonderful, as cute, as endearing kind of characteristic of them. With you I feel whole. Yes, literally, we are whole. We encompass all the different energies between us. What's actually happening here is that we've gotten ourselves into what I call a parent-child relationship, where on some level the more parental part of me is taking care of the more child part of my partner, and vice versa. So you can think of it as if I have put my little boy, my inner little boy, out onto the lap of my partner to take care of, and he snuggles up to her and feels great, and vice versa, she's put her little girl out onto my lap and I'm taking care of her, and it feels wonderful. It's what we call a feel-good bonding pattern, and the word bonding is taken from the original parent-child bonding, as you can see in this diagram. So if we look at this diagram carefully, there's you at the top and your partner at the bottom. Okay, so you've got, if you follow my arrow here, there's the more parental part of you links in with the more childlike part of your partner. So your more parental part, for example, might be an organized self, and you do all the organizing of the holidays, the organizing of the household finances, of whatever it may be. And the more childlike part of your partner feels very grateful and feels taken care of. There's always two sides to this, however. And this linking of more powerful selves with more vulnerable selves flips over to the other side here, and on the other side, maybe your partner is more caring, does the cooking, and takes care of the house and the cleaning and so on, and that feels very wonderful to the more childlike part of you, which then feels nurtured. So the thick dotted line here is the energetic, what we call linkage between you and your partner, between the parental side of you with the more childlike side of your partner, the more caring part of your partner linked into the more childlike, your more childlike part. And that's fabulous, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's as normal as breathing. We can't avoid this. This is what we do all the time in our relationships. But you might begin to get a sense that if it's only this, or in order to maintain this, stuff has to be excluded from the relationship. If I always have to be the organized person, maybe sometimes I don't feel like being organized. Maybe I don't want to do that anymore. I'm tired. And at that point, I've got to make a choice, haven't I? I've got to choose to maintain, do the organization even though I don't really feel like it, or risk upsetting this pattern of risk disappointing my partner. And similarly, my partner may not want to do the cooking. They may have, oh, I'm tired tonight, I don't really want to do the cooking. But rather than risk upsetting me, my nurtured child self, she goes ahead and does the cooking. She doesn't want to rock the boat. I don't want to rock the boat. Now, this not rocking the boat pattern, the pattern of trying to maintain this feel good. And by the way, this is just a cross section through a relationship. This is not the whole of the relationship. We're just taking a slice through a relationship as an example. What tends to happen is if we lock into a few selves that interact with each other and exclude the others that might in some way be threatening to the relationship, we start to feel a little bit like fish in a goldfish bowl. Yeah, we feel a bit constricted, we feel a bit confined. It's almost like we're in a room and there's not enough oxygen in the room anymore. Some other signs that we're locked into a fixed pattern of relating to the other partner would be that sensuality or sexuality tends to disappear or become less in the relationship, or that sex becomes routine, boring kind of thing. Okay, those would also be signs. So what's happening here is that energetic linkage is getting lost. We may be in the same room, in the same space with each other, but we don't feel connected anymore. The juice has gone between us. And that's really a setup for a flipping from a feeling good to a feeling bad bonding pattern. Something ignites. Boom, okay? And before we know where we're at, we're in an argument. I once worked with a couple who said, you know, things are really good in our relationship until something happens and some little thing causes an argument between us. It could be as small as who did or didn't put the cap back on the toothpaste. And suddenly this becomes a big deal, and it's like the descent into hell. And we're almost like enemies fighting each other. How does that happen? And it can kind of happen really quickly. What's going on? Well, it's because suddenly all of that material that has been excluded from the relationship starts to come in, starts to flood in. Notice in this picture, by the way, how the finger pointing is going on. There's the judgments. Well, who's making the judgments? Who's pointing the finger in both cases? Well, it's the primary self, because we don't feel safe suddenly, for whatever reason, we don't feel safe, and so the primary selves come back in on red alert. It's like, oh, I'm not loved anymore, you're to blame, okay? And the primary selves come in, and we look at the other partner through the eyes of the primary self, and we find them lacking. Of course, there's the three fingers pointing back, because what we're looking at is our own disowned material. That's the blame game. And from that point, I might say about my partner, you know, you're just so uncaring. Now, before my primary selves came in and judged her, I said, when I'm in love, wow, you're so self-sufficient and unconcerned. But now, no, you're just uncaring. You're insensitive. Not thick-skinned anymore, you're just insensitive. You're irresponsible rather than carefree. You see how all of these negative attributes start to come up through the eyes of the primary self. You're messy, not creative and spontaneous anymore. You're inattentive, rather than living in your imagination. You're spendthrift, you don't know how to handle money, rather than being relaxed about money. So we kind of beat the person up for the very things that were quite cute and endearing about them when we were in love. I wonder if that's ever happened to you. What we're talking about here then is a feel-bad bonding pattern. Suddenly, love has gone. You're not the person I thought I fell in love with. What's happened? You're not the same person anymore. Suddenly you're this monster. It feels catastrophic. It feels like the end. What happens then suddenly is, rather than being there for the other person, you feel withdrawn. So you as the more parental self here, pull back. You're not going to do the organising anymore. Why can't you just do it yourself? You rely on me all the time. I have to do it all the time. We start to use the absolute words like, you never do this. You always do that. Every time. And another thing, these kind of phrases will tell you that you're in a feel-bad bonding pattern when your primary selves are up, and boy, they are judging what they see as their opposites in the other person. Well, how does the child part of your partner feel when that happens? When you withdraw, they feel abandoned. That's a very vulnerable place to be. It doesn't feel comfortable. So your partner flips over to the other side and finds a power self and comes from blame. You can talk. You know what? Da 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 da. And another thing. And how do you feel then? Guilty. You might not even sense into the guilt. It might just flash through in a nanosecond, because you know what? Your primary self is going to flip over to the other side and you'll come even more withdrawn. And on it goes. So that's the form of it, and what happens is that the fuel that keeps the argument going is all our own disowned material, all that delicious stuff that we can judge and judge and judge in the other person. So there are some questions to ask ourselves when we get into an argument, when we get into a feel-bad bonding pattern, when paradise gets lost, as it were. First question is, who do I become? In the argument, in the conflict, who do I become? In other words, which primary selves jump in, take me over, in their attempt to protect me from what they feel is an unsafe situation suddenly. So who do I become will be an indicator of what primary selves are there trying their best to protect you. And the next question to ask yourself is, well, what am I judging? What am I judging in the other person? And that then will show you what your disowned material is that the other person is manifesting as their primary selves. In that sense, the other person is our teacher to understanding, to waking up to becoming aware of what we are disowning in ourselves. And behind all of that is the question, what is my underlying vulnerability? Either that I'm unaware of, as in, no, I'm fine, what are you talking about? I'm not vulnerable. It's so buried, I'm so out of touch with it. My primary selves are so in charge that I can't feel it. Or maybe I feel it, but I don't feel safe sharing it with that particular person. That's the most difficult one to get to, because our primary selves are trying to protect it, they're trying to push it away, keep it out of the picture. Notice how in an argument you feel confident, you feel powerful, okay? Because your primary selves have this righteous indignation about them. When you're in the feel-good bonding pattern, you can allow yourself to feel a little more vulnerable. But it's the wake-up call of the negative bonding pattern to what it is that we're not owning, that we're pushing away. That's the big teaching, the big lesson of a feel-bad bonding pattern. So there's a gift in it, in other words. Doesn't feel like it at the time, goodness me, no. But there is definitely a gift there. If we don't learn from these feel-bad bonding patterns, if we don't learn how to take care of our own vulnerability, if we don't separate from our primary selves, if we don't embrace what's on the other side, if we only blame the other person and continue with our judgments of them, what we'll do maybe is that we'll end the relationship. We'll stomp off and we'll say, my God, how could I have ever fallen in love with someone like that? I must have been crazy. I'm so glad they're out of my life now. And if we haven't learned the lessons, you know what? We will meet the same person in a different body. And we'll go through the same patterns. And we'll get slapped. And that can go on. Some people do it many times in their lives. But if we wake up to what's going on, if we learn the lessons, then we don't have to repeat the patterns. Now, there are ways that we can help each other not to get into such negative bonding patterns. Healthy partnering involves some real practicalities. For love is great, but we need to live in the real world, and we need to deal with the selves that get us through life, and we need to work on these together with the person we're in love with. Love is not enough. We need some other practical arrangements. Here's some suggestions for you. Business meetings. What do I mean by that? In a way, being in a relationship is a bit like a business. We need to have regular meetings. We need to discuss things like who's doing the shopping, who's doing the cleaning, who's doing the washing. Not assuming that one person's going to take on that responsibility all the time. And we need in that process to take care of our vulnerabilities. If I am feeling vulnerable about something, is to be able to share that with the other person, not to automatically expect that they will take care of it for me. I may consciously ask them for their help, that's okay. But if I just assume that they're going to take care of me all the time, as in that classic one of, well, if you really love me, you would know that I wasn't feeling okay. Well, not necessarily, I'm not a mind reader. So, communication. Can we communicate specifically through an aware ego? Can we say, you know what, right now there's a part of me that's feeling quite vulnerable. I'm not quite sure why, but I just wanted to let you know that that's going on. Can you help me understand this? Or right now there's a part of me that feels quite upset about the way you did that. Another part of me doesn't really understand what's going on here. Can we discuss that? It's a really useful, interesting way of being able to communicate with each other from the past. But before you can do that, you have to have a measure of awareness of these parts, a separation from the primary selves, a beginning of an awareness of what's on the other side. What are the benefits of this then? First, it can help to resolve conflicts and disagreements quickly. I know in myself, many years ago, before I started using voice dialogue actively in my life, I could get into arguments that would last for days. My primary selves will come in and lock down, that's it. Right? But these days, it's not that I don't have arguments or conflicts, I do, but I can move through them much quickly. I don't have to go too far down the blame game route. I can catch myself and go, whoa, hang on a minute, something's going on here. And the first question I ask myself usually actually is, where am I feeling vulnerable here? Where's the vulnerability that I'm not really owning up to or taking care of, or I'm not sharing with my partner? It's often a very difficult question to answer, but it really is at the root, at the core of this feel-bad bonding pattern. And then I get to look at which of my primary selves are coming in to protect that vulnerability for me on my behalf, and what are they blaming or judging that is my disowned material in my partner. This can really deepen our connection with family and friends and bring us more compassion and understanding for what's going on. And it also enables us to express ourselves more freely in our intimate relationships. Okay, the next step on this module then is to work on exercises 33 to 40, where I invite you to work through some of your feel good and feel bad bonding patterns. Read an article I wrote on Montezuma's Revenge, which really is my insights into my parents' relationship, and then Michael and I talking about that. Read the diagramming bonding patterns, and read the interview that Hal Stone gave on PBS called The Total Self. Fill out the bonding patterns worksheet for you and some of your relationships, and there's 3 articles to read. There's also a piece I recorded with a couple where they discuss their own feel good and feel bad bonding patterns. That may give you some insights, be helpful for you understanding your bonding patterns. Continue to post the questions and comments on chat, and of course complete the preparatory exercise for Module 6, Writing a Dream, before watching the next presentation.